was that for an intro? Well, I'm coming at you on a Sunday morning with a stream of consciousness kind of vibe, and we're going to do a speed draw of my latest neurographic drawing. I had put up a poll to find out whether you guys wanted to see a speed draw or if you wanted me to break it up into some real-time drawings, because this drawing took about 10 hours. And let's face it, sometimes speed draws can be a little tedious, but overwhelmingly it seems like that's what you guys would like. So that's what we're going to do today. By the way, welcome to Kelly's Art Throb. I'm Kelly, and today I'm going to answer the long-awaited question, how many pens did it take me to draw this drawing? Is that something you guys would like to know about? I have a whole lot of pens, and I think I used almost every single one of them in this drawing. I have several fountain pens, but in this drawing I only used one of them. But I used a lot of fine liners, and I got some new pens. I got some brush pens, and that is something that is really a lot of fun to use. However, they can be a little bit dry. You know, if the ink, if the brush is part of the pen, I'm using a Faber Castel Pitt artist pen, brush pen. It has India ink on it, India ink in it. So it's waterproof if I want to do watercolor or an ink wash over it. And it works a lot like a Sharpie, like a fine Sharpie, but the ink color is better. It works better with my other pens. It has the right color of black, if that makes sense. Some of them can be brownish, some of them can be bluish. All of my black pens are really a neutral black. So Sharpies tend to be kind of a blue-black, and it just doesn't look right. Plus, Sharpies go through the back of the paper sometimes. The thing about the Pitt artist pen, the brush pens, the tip is made out of felt. It's not like a real brush pen. So you have to be really careful with it and not press too hard or it will lose its shape. But the India ink is really good for filling in line weight against a line that didn't have enough variation. And you can get a pretty fine point with it. So you can go in between two fine lines to make one fat line. I also used a Pentel Brush Pen, and that actually is a real brush pen, and it also uses a waterproof ink. Although I haven't really tested that, it's supposed to be, but you can get really thick and thin lines with it. It does some exquisitely thin lines, but I'm still getting used to brush pens. It's not something I have a lot of experience with, and it takes a lot of control. I'm going to have to really work with it and get used to it. And of course, I used my Koh-i-noor Rapidograph. That's one of my favorite pens. It's fine enough that I can get really, really fine lines, but it's also not too fine for the ink to get too clogged up in it. If you get one with too fine of a nib, it clogs up constantly. I don't know if paper fibers get stuck in the nib or if it's just so small that any amount of drawing out of the ink just clogs it. Anyway, it's really frustrating. But fine liners have a tendency to fray a little bit, like the lines just get wider and wider and wider. And I was using these Copic multiliners, and you can replace the nibs, but they're going to discontinue those, so yeah, I guess I'll keep after it with my Koh-i-noor Rapidograph, and I'll just have to be a little bit more careful about maintaining it. I mean, I've had it for a long time. I got it with a set I had to get for a college drafting class, and they all still work, but this is my favorite one for the kind of drawings that I like to do. Now recently I also discovered these Hi-Tec-C pens that Moma. I don't know if I'm pronouncing it right. He's another artist on YouTube. I'm not that familiar with him, but I did notice he had a video where he talked about it being the best pen for drawing. And so I had to try it out, and I got a couple of different widths, and they are just as beautifully fine as the Koh-i-noor Rapidograph. But the only problem is the ink is not even water resistant. You can't do another ink wash or watercolor over it. But I suppose in a drawing where I know I'm not going to do that, it's okay. I mean, they make beautiful lines, just gorgeous. In a drawing like this, I like to use all different kinds of pens. I like the way all of the different pens fulfill a different function. Like the brush pens do a lot of thick to thin, which is something I'm getting into and really like. And then the Koh-i-noor Rapidograph does there's no line width variation at all. And then I have a fountain pen that does do just a little, it's a 14 karat gold nib, and my understanding, and I don't know a lot about fountain pens, is that it's supposed to have more flex. It's supposed to be have the ability to give you more line variation, and it does a little bit, but I have to say it's pretty limited. It's not anything like those brush pens. And I suppose one of the things that I really like about the different pens is that they feel different, and sometimes I want to do something scratchy, and sometimes I like the staccato of, it's a very gentle staccato. It's not like a hard staccato, but stippling with a very fine nibbed pen that gives little teeny tiny dots. I really like doing that. It has, I don't know, I don't think I have synesthesia, but I definitely think that I associate different feedback from different pens with different like emotions. And staccato is kind of, well, my youngest kiddo, when he was like 3, just bounced all the time. Like, we'd be with people, and while he was talking, he would just be jumping up and down the whole time. And it was very gleefully doing that, you know? And I sort of feel like that's what staccato is for me, that those stipples definitely feel like that sort of gleeful jumping up and down. You know, not in a weak, I don't know how to put it. Okay, get a pen and do some stippling. I want you to experience the joy of stippling. There's nothing else like it. You just have to do it. Okay, and as usual, I'm doing this on hot press watercolor paper. I like hot press watercolor paper for almost everything, and I'm not that particular about what brand, as long as it's either Fabriano, or I also like Winsor & Newton really well, and of course Arches. It's like the old standby. It's like the thing. The only thing is that Fabriano Artistico, they changed their sizing to a vegan sizing, which is great and everything, but it doesn't really behave the same. Some people like it, I really don't. So when I'm finished, I've got lots of the old Artistico hot press paper, so I'm not going to run out very soon. But I think when I do, I probably won't replace it with more Fabriano, because I just don't like the sizing. I'm sorry. I guess, I don't know, I guess I'm an artistic carnivore. Okay, so I switched from my fine liner back to the Koh-i-noor, and then I didn't like that either, so I switched to the Hi-C, the Hi-C gel pen, and this is like one of my favorite things in this drawing. I felt like this drawing was very kind of like a textile. It felt like a lot of different kinds of fabric textures. And right here I'm doing one of those woven rugs where they take rolls of fabric and then they weave them together. And I used to have my second apartment, which was really a townhome. It was like a duplex, and it had all hardwood floors throughout it, except the kitchen had like linoleum, or I don't know, not linoleum, sheet vinyl from like the 1970s or something. But I remember those rugs and just the way they felt on bare feet. I also remember that they washed up like really, really well. I mean, I stuck them. Did you guys ever have to go to the laundromat to do your laundry? And because you didn't have laundry facilities at your apartment? I spent a lot of time at the laundromat. I remember washing those rugs. Isn't it funny how drawing can take you back like a long way back in your memory? Anyway, that's what this did. It took me back. And there were a few things that I just didn't record because it was such a long drawing. And one of the things I do also, if I'm a long way into the drawing and I want to experiment, I don't want to do the experiment exactly on the drawing, because if I mess it up, that's like 8 or 10 hours wasted. And I've done that before. It is not a good feeling. So sometimes I'll trace the little area and I'll experiment on a separate piece of paper so that I know whether what I'm wanting to do is going to work. So that's what I did a little while ago in that corner. And then I just found online, when I was stuck and didn't know what to do, I just went online and looked for images of different textiles. And that's what I did in here. Like this is, I think it's like coming up here, it's a kind of fabric that has a lot of overlapping textures. And then in the corner, it's like a very loosely woven burlap. And you can almost feel the texture with your fingers while you're drawing it. And it's just kind of a cool feeling, like just to feel what those little tiny fibers feel like. You can almost tell. And then here underneath that, I found some leather buttons like that go on a fur coat, or not like a fur coat, but like a wool coat. And those were really cool to draw too. I like the textural look of those woven leather buttons. Okay, you guys, before you go, I have to tell you something. The police were at my house today. It seems that if I want to walk around the house naked, I have to do it inside. Okay, you guys. I love those old groaners. Anyway, you guys take care, and I'll see you in the next video. Stay well, and hey, hit the thumbs up if you wouldn't mind on your way out. Bye-bye, you guys.